So let's talk about the most efficient yet most underutilized way to train. I'm talking about German body composition, of course. Hi, my name's Bobby, and my goal is to simplify the world of fitness and give you a better understanding when it comes to your training and your nutrition. Charles Poliquin came up with the idea to try and train athletes as efficiently as possible. The idea is that you pair an upper body exercise with a lower body exercise and you do them as supersets. And supersets in its simplest form are basically doing 2 exercises back to back with minimal rest period. And the goal of this program is to be obviously time efficient because you just don't have enough time to train. And effectively what happens is you train one upper body muscle and then you do one lower body movement. And while your upper body is resting, your lower body is working. And while your lower body is resting, your upper body is working. Now from a structure standpoint, you were doing 3 to 5 sets per day with 8 to 12 reps. That's roughly the rep range that you're going to be working in. And you want to do a maximum of 4 supersets, so 8 exercises altogether. Now, this is a tried and tested method, and I came across it a few years ago, and I've been applying it to my clients ever since, and I've seen some amazing results. Now, what are the benefits of German body composition training? I know I've touched on it a little bit earlier, but ultimately it's about losing as much body fat as possible whilst gaining as much muscle as possible. Now, the other benefit to doing German body composition as well is time efficiency. So the training sessions are very short and you don't tend to be in the gym any more than 60 minutes. Now, some of the other benefits of German body composition training is that it increases stamina. Your heart rate goes through the roof. And the other thing is you can burn up to 500 calories per session. That's an incredible amount if you compare that to a sort of more traditional weight training session, which burns between 150 to 200 calories, even if you're pushing it. Now, I've touched on the setup a little bit earlier, but generally speaking, what you're trying to do is you're trying to combine multiple compound exercises throughout your session. So what's a compound exercise? So you're talking about a squat, you're talking about RDLs, bench press, things like that. So exercises that essentially use multiple muscle groups. So like in a squat, you'll be using your quads, your glutes, a little bit of your hamstrings, a little bit of your lower back and so on. And the other thing I like about that training is you get a nice endorphin high. So you come out the session feeling incredible. Like you end up feeling high almost. And I know this sounds kind of hard to believe when you're doing that because especially if you find it hard to train, you can't really get your mind around it. But trust me when I say this, that when you finish a session, you feel on top of the world. And the other reason why I like utilizing German body composition training is because if you look at traditional programs, they tend to be 4, 5, 6 day kind of programs. Whereas with this, you essentially only have to train 3 days a week. And hopefully this will allow you to actually be able to stick to a program for time's sake. And the first one really is that it is quite hard to do in a very busy gym. Because you're doing 2 exercises together, it's quite hard to kind of say, oh no, I'm using this hack squat, I'm using this barbell, while you go over and do a lat pull down. Most people don't understand that style of training. They usually think when you're off the machine, that's you finished. Now you can get around this by kind of picking exercises, if you know the layout of your gym, that are sort of next to each other. But if you have a gym that's quite big, it can get a little bit more difficult to do that. Now, no program's perfect. And one of the things with German body composition is that you are not always going to challenge the smaller muscle groups, so like your biceps, your triceps, and maybe your side delts just as much. That doesn't mean you're not working them. They just don't tend to be programmed in as much. But if you're somebody who's a beginner, I personally wouldn't recommend focusing on those smaller muscle groups before you kind of get your body into the position that you want it to be in the first place. Oh yeah, and one of the other downsides is it is hard work. It is really, really hard work. I can't emphasize this enough. Like it is a genuinely challenging set. I was close to being sick. I used to hover around a bin. It was not a nice sight, but I used to just linger around a bin, hoping I won't be sick in the gym. And I've actually had some clients be sick during this session. So German body composition is for someone who's potentially looking to burn some body fat and also gain some muscle at the same time. Now, if you're a competitive bodybuilder, obviously this training is not for you because you will have your own specific program to follow. Now, it's also great for people who are limited on time. And I know I've touched on this earlier, but if you can only go to the gym 3 days a week, that is a great program to follow if you're limited on time and you've only got an hour to do your session. And the other reason I like doing German body composition, and this is again what I touched on earlier, where it really increases your heart rate. If you don't like doing cardio, if you're not somebody that likes to go on a 20, 25 minute, half an hour jog or whatever, just go and do some German body composition, get your heart rate on. You'll be surprised how high your heart rate's going to go. So what does a sample day actually look like when you're talking about German body composition training? And as I mentioned earlier, you want to pair an upper body exercise with a lower body exercise. Now, if you're getting value from this video, please don't forget to like the video and show me that you actually appreciate this type of content so I can do more. So for example, your first round might be a lat pull down paired with a squat variation. So it could be like a hack squat, a barbell squat, a pendulum squat, anything like that, but kind of you want to keep the compound movements to the top. So then the next exercise pairing could be, say, a hamstring curl with a shoulder press variation. So that could be a machine, that could be a standing barbell overhead press, which is personally something I would prefer in this particular program, even though generally I'm not a fan of free weights. And if you're interested in finding out why I'm not a fan of free weights, go and watch the video in the description below where I go in depth talking about machines versus free weights and who should be using what. And then the next round could be a goblet squat, you potentially with heel elevation, where you go nice and heavy, and then you pair that with a seated machine row, for example, where we've gone away from the compound exercises and more into machines because we're getting tired now. We want to minimize the risk of injury. And you could potentially add a fourth set into this if you wanted to. Again, think about pairing an upper body with a lower body exercise. So something like a Bulgarian split squat with, for example, a chest press, something along those lines. Or you could potentially leave that fourth set out and go into some conditioning work where you do 3 rounds to 5 rounds of, say, the ski erg or the sled push or the assault bikes or anything like that. So I hope this video has been helpful. But if you're interested in finding out more about nutrition and how to pair that with this training program, I've got a video over here that you can go and watch that tells you exactly how to calculate your calories and your macros. Well, other than that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.